Hello and welcome back. It is Mary Van Alstyne here, and I am here with my super sexy, super fun, super friendly co-host and friend, Robert Morales.
Well, hello.
I caught you off guard.
Yeah, you feel.
Well, I was kind of tying that into last week when we were talking about receiving compliments, so I thought I'd throw that in there and see how you react.
Oh, well, hello. You're a sexy self. Hello. I call Mary my fur baby for lots of reasons, but I won't tell you here on the Inner Journey because we talk about emotions, not about our pet names.
Oh, hilarious. So, yes, we are here on the Inner Journey where
Yes.
we talk about all things it is to be human, and we dive deep into emotions and all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, last week we got into sexuality and image and a lot of other things that, would be very provocative. So I would encourage you to check out last week's video.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this week we're talking a little bit. So it spurred off a conversation from last week's video into facing your inner child. You know, we talked about self-image last week, and it kind of talked into like really facing why we feel that way. And really, a lot of it comes back from childhood. You know, a lot of experiences. There is some heredity, there are some cultural things, but it really comes back to the things we learned at a very young age.
Yeah, when we were very impressionable, when we were between those ages where, you know, whatever is told us is truth, right? When we're in that, they say that between 0 and 7 or 8, we're operating on theta brainwaves where there's no, like, determining what's correct. There's no deciphering between information, and we just basically take in everything as truth. And that's where a majority of our personality and our ideas are created, or where they come from.
Would you say we're born as blank slates?
That's kind of a deep question.
I go deep.
As far
but I go deep.
We definitely go deep. I believe as far as our ideas in this body and mind and whatever you want to believe, but as babies is in these meat sacks, I do believe we come as pretty blank slates. I mean, I think we naturally have some genetic, you know, personality things that are going to show up and things, but I think we're very, very close to being a blank slate.
Yeah, I think if you read Robert Kowalski from Stanford University, he does talk about heredity and kind of the dynamics of how we are connected to our previous heritage and our previous like family members. Yeah. I would encourage anybody out there who, again, he's from Stanford, he's a Stanford professor, so he talks about behavioral psychology, I think is what he focused on. But a lot of interesting stuff. I mean, he goes deep and it's really thick. I've read his book and oh my God, it takes like an hour just to get through the intro.
Yeah, some of that stuff is just like, I'm actually going through one right now. It's very intense, but worth it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the thing that we wanted to face today was a little bit more in the line of anger. So anger for us, I think, for a lot of people out there is a natural kind of tendency to go to when things are out of control, when we're frustrated, just be angry about it. You know, have you had those moments, Mary, where you've just been like angry and just you're in a rage mode? You know,
absolutely, I have. Yeah, rage mode, like Hulk smash. Yes. But you're wearing green. You should have probably done the Hulk smash.
Hulk smash.
Yeah, and what I realize these days, I know we're so goofy today, but is that anger really is it's natural, and yet where it comes from and it's deeply rooted from is fear. Yeah. Yeah.
See, and when we were talking a bit earlier, I would say there's a couple parts to it, but one is when you're a child, if you don't learn to grow out of that, you know, you use it to manipulate people. You use like a kid, you know, will be throw a tantrum in a store, and they know that their parent will give them whatever they want to just to shut them up to get them out of the store, you know, and it may work in that specific, you know, circumstance. But it may not work in other areas, you know, at home. You know, the mom might just like, oh, well, he's just throwing attention, whatever. But in like a school setting, like a church, did your mom ever get mad at you when you went to church? Did you ever go to church? No?
I think I went a couple times when I was young. But
were you a loud kid?
No. Well, I had a lot of energy, but I was very shy. My childhood is a whole different story, but I was very shy. I think naturally I would have been very energetic and more expressive. However, I was very fearful.
Yeah, like you. Once in a while, you'll be at church. I don't know if anybody still goes there. I mean, I'm a seasonal Catholic, so I go like Christmas, Easter, and whenever somebody dies, to be honest.
or gets married.
Or gets married. And, you'll see the one-off kid throwing a tantrum in there, and the mom's like, stop it. Mm-hmm. And then you see them kind of yank them out, and they take them out to the parking lot or whatever.
We've all been there.
We've all seen that. But, in terms of using anger, I think initially we learn it as a way to manipulate the person around us, the people that love us. And it carries forward into other aspects. Do you have a dissenting opinion?
I was just going to say, I don't know that when a child is throwing a tantrum that's necessarily an anger tactic. I think it's more just something that they've learned. Like, when we're babies, babies, like we learn that a cry receives attention. And then as we get older, it's like that cry turns into what appears as a tantrum. And I don't know that they're doing anything other than what they learned from such a young age, is like, and I think it's up to the parents to, just continue to work with that, because it's not like you just instantly tell them not to do that. It's like kind of training. It's kind of like training them, like being the consistent one that will just take them out versus giving them what they want. That's a nightmare, by the way. Deciding to take them out of the store with your cart, instead of like deal with that there. But anyway, that's a whole other parenting topic.
And the first thought is like, okay, it's used for manipulation, but it's also, I think the second thought is it's used to challenge the authority.
Oh yeah.
So as a child is growing up, they want to challenge, especially a parent, because they're trying to take, authority over the family, authority over guidance, and and when they're like a 1-year-old, they're little in this little tiny body that you can kind of like manipulate and throw around, whatever. But then as they grow up, it's like, oh, I can't put them in their car seat. I can't throw them in. When they're 16 years old, you can't just tell them to go to your room, because guess what? They can storm out and go. Get in a car with their friends, and there's really nothing that you can do to physically stop them unless you like, wrestle them down, And I don't know too many people that do that.
No, I definitely am not. My 16-year-old is like almost 6 foot tall now and weighs quite a bit more than me. So yeah, I'm not a wrestler, definitely.
So I think we learn anger from a young age, just to manipulate and then to seize control over the community, over the group.
Yeah, and do you think that stems from a fear of loss or a fear of not being accepted or being rejected, or?
I think that's probably the third one too. Is the fear part, losing something that they're concerned to lose.
Yeah.
So I really think anger is tied into fear. If we're going to get into a little bit deeper as far as like the origins of anger, like when people are afraid to lose something, what are the reactions?
Anger is a
big
one. Frustration.
Blame, maybe.
Blame. And I was going to say that the fear really, when it projects out as anger, to me is because of kind of victim mentality. Something's happening to me, and that caused me to be afraid. So now I'm going to get angry so that I can try to control it, right? Or that kind of thing.
Well, anger is kind of like an outward expression, right? Like you can be internally angry, but nothing's going to happen if you're just brooding in there. And if you're brooding and you're waiting for somebody to recognize that you're in that state, like, Mary, you're not saying anything. Don't you notice I'm angry?
I just had some flashbacks.
There's that brooding part, but then the outward piece of that, gets attention. The more I'm angry, like, hey, what the?
So we're all just little temper tantrum throwing kids walking around in adult bodies. So? Yeah, definitely.
Oh, you don't think so? I don't.
Definitely.
I've known plenty of adults where I'm like, this person has not grown up whatsoever.
Yeah. Well, like the guy who road raged on me the other day.
Oh, you got a road rage?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, tell me about
that. He literally, I wasn't going fast enough and spun up around me and just like threw on his brakes on the freeway on-ramp and was like swerving and trying to get me to hit him. But then he was trying to get me to pull over so he could fight me. And I had my 8-year-old daughter in the car, and I'm like, this guy is literally like a little baby freaking out right now. And it was just like, to me, it was a little bit amusing, but also scary, because you never know who's going to flip the switch and pull a gun. But yeah, it's like the moments like that where I see people that are just losing it. Like they have absolutely no self-control. And I'm like, I literally see a little child throwing a tantrum. It's like where that somehow they got something out of that in their life. Somehow that kind of tantrum, that kind of display of anger and puffing chest and whatever it is protecting a scared little boy, right?
Yeah.
That's afraid of something, you know. He fears that he's going to lose control or have a bad image, or, you know, whatever it is. He feels like he's not going to have this domination over people, right? It just, to me, it's so interesting.
Well, maybe even explore a little bit deeper of why he's angry with you. If he's rushing in traffic, he's probably late to something. If he's late to something, he's probably disappointing somebody.
Yeah.
If he's disappointing somebody, he's probably afraid to lose that relationship.
Yeah.
There's so many layers that go to this stuff that if you don't like seize in the moment, just stop and not engage with his anger, because that's really what he wants you to do. He's trying to transmit his feelings to you for his anger to be your anger.
It's almost
to
like
take it off his shoulders and give it to you.
Exactly. It's like, take this fear bucket off me, right? I can unload it on you by unloading this anger on you. And that's what people unfortunately do to each other all the time.
Yeah, and the reason why we're kind of going through this process is so that, you know, we can somewhat teach you how to understand how these feelings operate. You know, one of the things that I want to recognize is that we're all irrational people. And that's the first step in what we're here to talk. We're just human beings, so we're subject to our feelings and emotions, and some of them we can't control.
Some of them we just are completely irrational.
Well, okay. An example: you go to a scary house, like on Halloween, right? Mm-hmm. Can you control the fact that you're afraid when you go into that dark room?
No.
And I don't know. I can be really tough on the outside. I can be like, oh fuck, this isn't gonna bother me. Right. And then I walk right through the horror show, whatever.
And you have the loudest screech in the room.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you can't control those visceral senses. Those feelings. You just the first step is accepting that we're just irrational people sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, we try to control our feelings. We try to like meditate and be like,
well, that's the key, is trying to control the feeling versus accepting the feeling, because we all have these, right? And we're taught that anger is bad, and anger can be very healthy. Anger can drive you to make a change in your life, right? Anger can, if someone's abusing your child, like, give you that strength to be able to go protect them. Like, anger is useful, it is very useful, and it's like, it's all these perceptions that we put, right? Like last week we talked about the perception of vulnerability. Now it's this perception of anger. We're just taught to be in this little box and to deny emotions. And what happens when you resist something? It grows and grows and grows, and turns into this big, ugly, hairy, scary monster, right? And so that's absolutely the key to it, is to accept these feelings and these that we're irrational beings. We have stupid emotions, and sometimes they're, completely out the window and
don't make sense half the time.
But it's okay. It's okay. And that's what I think we need to come down to, is like, God, it's okay. I'm a human. Holy crap.
So in this process, you really have to examine your actions and your reactions to things. One of the things in my process of counseling, because I've gone to counseling for a number of reasons and over time. And one of the things that, I grew up with was my relationship with my parents, and understanding that piece of that. One of the things that my dad used to do was not finish things, and that's the disappointed my mom. And so I picked up on a lot of those emotions, and today I really recognize and I feel compelled to finish things, and I get frustrated when I don't. And I'm like, oh, this makes a lot of sense why I'm so motivated to get from beginning to end, because I don't want the disappointment of my mom to fall on me. Mm-hmm. As much as anger and frustration she had towards my father for never finishing anything, I never wanted that on me. So I am driven to finish it. So now, like that frustration that I used to get, like I used to, take it out on people. Mm-hmm. And now it's like I like in the past, in any project. So this TV stand that I had, I stayed up until like 2:00 in the morning just to finish it, get it on the wall, and be done with it. And to the dismay of the person I was with, it's like, hey, come to bed. You need to stop. Take a break. It's like, no, I'm compelled to finish it. And I would get frustrated, like, hey, stop, just leave me alone. So I can finish this thing. But it's also recognizing that that's kind of the origins where that came from. And now it's like, okay, when I'm in that frustrated state, it's not, Mary, it's not you. I just want you to recognize that I need these internal issues that I have. I just need to finish this project. Yeah. Once I'm finished with this project, I will completely engage and be focused in on you.
If I'm still awake at 2 a.m. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll make breakfast in the morning.
Yeah, no, it's so, it's so true. And it's all about that power of self-awareness and understanding these things that you're dealing with, right? Understanding where an emotion came from. And that's a beautiful thing when you start to develop that self-awareness to the point where you can start making shifts that can maybe turn some irrational things to make more sense, or, and then when things make more sense and you have awareness, then you can start to shift if you feel like that's something you want to shift, right? But if we're just walking around unconscious and we're having all this, if you had no idea and you weren't able to accept responsibility and tell your partner that you just needed the time, you understood this was a thing, to be able to take that, it like, imagine what that does to the relationship over the time. You know, it's like you're just living based off of like unconscious programming and unconscious behavior with, wow, it's such a beautiful thing that I hope everybody decides to go on the journey of, is this journey of self-awareness, because it can change I believe it can change the world if we all start taking a look in, which is why we're here at the Inner Journey.
We're here to share these moments with you,
Yeah.
And the one thing that I appreciate too, and then the thing that you've helped me with too, is that recognition that I need to spend a little bit more time and understanding these feelings. Like if I'm ever frustrated with you, I know that I have to acknowledge the feeling that I'm in. Hey, Mary, I'm really upset. I don't know why. It could be you. It could not be you. It could be something you did or did not do. I'm frustrated, but I'm going to tell you that I'm frustrated, and I'm still trying to explore the reasons for that. Do you mind if I come back and talk to you later?
Yeah.
The third step, I think, in this whole thing is to increase that reaction time instead of say, hey, Mary, get the fuck out of here. I can't deal with you anymore. I'm just frustrated. I'm mad.
I would cry.
Instead of doing stuff like that, it's like, hey, Mary, I love you. I want you to be here. I'm frustrated. I don't want to see you, but I don't want you to leave either.
Like, give me a few minutes. Yeah. It's like taking that time to pause between the stimulus of what triggered you and responding how you would normally respond. Because when you're in that moment of my hair got stuck, of being triggered, you're literally like reacting from that little child, right? Yeah. That's who's coming up to instantly act. And then when we are able to kind of take that time, maybe whether it's a minute, 5 minutes, if you say something that like throws me off and pisses me off, instead of me firing back at you, like, whoa, like calming down that inner child Mary that's now fearful and wants to react in anger. Yeah. Just saying, okay, I'm going to take a minute to see what's really going on here, and then I have the ability to react appropriately and diffuse a situation versus like just escalating it into something horrible. Like if I would have stopped and that, with the road rage guy, right? If I would have fed that, what would that have turned into? So it's like, that's the biggest piece, is taking that moment. And I think in that moment, when you're really looking at your reaction, that's like recognizing that inner child, and going, okay, what is it that you're fearing that is causing this anger right now? And that's just a great thing to practice. Yeah,
and really, honestly, when we were kids, we should have had our parent or the caregiver, whoever was around us at the time, where we're throwing a tantrum and being upset, be like, hey, Mary, let's sit down and have a talk. I know you're 3, and you've basically had these issues. These issues came up. Let's process a little bit. Let's calm down first and let's talk about this.
Yeah, or give them a minute, right? Like even with my kids now, sometimes when because I'm always attempting to give them that knowledge and kind of pass on emotional intelligence to them, and it takes a lot to do that. So it's
especially when you're in the frustration too.
Yeah, and it's a commitment, and to be able to calm my own inner child who's getting very triggered. And to be able to have a conversation with them, if there's disciplinary action needed for anything, then of course take that. But, maybe sometimes it's let them go into their room for 5 minutes until we can have that space. Because they're going to be more willing to hear me, and they're going to be more willing to listen to what I'm saying when they're not in that heightened state anymore, And that's kind of the key, is what we were talking about. It's like, but the beautiful thing about we can do with our children is to educate them on that. Give them the tools to start digging into their own psyche to understand why they're having these emotions and even what their emotions are, because so many of us are blind to what we're feeling. I think that's step 1.
What I was taught when I was a kid?
Be quiet.
Like, just let them cry.
Yeah.
Let them learn. I told them not to touch it. Let them touch it. Let them touch let them touch the hot pen. So they'll learn. It's just stuff like that. It's just like absent,
Yeah.
Like, oh, hey, you screwed up.
No guidance kind of thing. And I think there was, in our generation, there wasn't a lot of talk about emotions. There wasn't a lot of understanding about it. It was kind of that hush-hush, right? They were like the silent generation who didn't talk about what they were thinking. So therefore, half of them I don't even think know what they were feeling. And so now we get to change that in this generation and the generations to come, where we're very self-aware.
Well, and one of the things as a boy too, you're with with me and my dad and my brother, and then I have a number of cousins that were just male, and it's like, hey, what are you gonna be like a girl for? You know, it's like, oh shit. And then that what we talked about last week is that separation from the community. It's like, oh man, I don't want to be a girl. I mean, just take it. You know, being angry. Because anger seems to be more guy thing than really like, hey, I'm gonna cry because. You hurt my feelings.
They have a lot of fear to hide, to cover up, to mask. That's that toxic masculinity that we talk about a little bit. They have a lot of fear because they were shamed into thinking that having emotions, which we all do, if you're human, you have emotions. But they were taught that that was bad. And that fear caused them to think that they were going to be excluded from the community and die. Yeah. So what they learned to do, cover it up. How'd you cover it up? Anger, right? Yeah.
So the last, I think the last thing, and probably for the guy that you ran across.
Hello, road rage guy. This one's for you.
is stop trying to change people.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we spend so much, exhaust so much energy trying to like change a point of view, somebody else's perception, and just instead of just accepting their point of view or accepting that they're angry and saying, oh, you know what? Oh,
yeah.
I noticed that you're angry. I'm going to leave the room and I'll come back. I love you.
Yeah.
I want to be in your life still. I'm going to leave the room, give you a chance to kind of diffuse or do whatever, and then I'll come back in about an hour.
And it diffuses.
Instead of like, right at you.
Come at me, bro. Yeah. Like that guy. Well, and the point is, too, that just came to me when you were saying that is communication is key. You know, communication is key. When I was going through marriage counseling at one time, that was a thing is like communicate to the other person that you're not abandoning them. That'll calm down their fear of being abandoned that probably came up during childhood. But let them know, I'm going to take 10 minutes. I love you. I'm going to talk to you about this, reassure them and communicate, and then take what you need and then come back and address the issue. And so the communication is the biggest piece of this. Not because so many people, when they're angry, they just huff and shut down and storm off. They go take that. That's their, well, I was taking the time to cool down. Well, okay. To the other person, it felt like you were leaving them, you know, and abandoning them, right? So I think a huge one in all of this is communication.
Yeah, and I guess if there was an addendum to that too,
There's always an addendum.
Oh, always. Is, you know, we give so much reverence to children. We are so patient when it's a 1-year-old, probably a little bit more patient, you know, if it's something we recognize as being very juvenile. Mm-hmm. But as people get older, we stop having that same reverence.
So true.
You know, like a child throwing a fit at 1 could be very similar to an adult at 30 throwing the same fit, but yet we expect them to be an adult. Mm-hmm. They've grown physically, but emotionally they may still be 1 year old. Which is unfortunate. And like I said, on the addendum part of this is like treat everybody like if they were still a child.
Yeah,
And not talk down to them. That's different. Do not be like, oh my God, I'm sorry, hubby. You're throwing a little anger fit, Mary. I know you're 40 years old. You're such a cute little. Don't be that way.
Right,
you know?
but like internally,
have that patience.
Give yourself the ability to have compassion by reminding yourself that they are basically a child, and that
we
brings
all
me
are,
to
honestly.
one of my forgiveness exercises that I've always
Addendum
worked
2.
with.
This is
Addendum 2000 is the forgiveness work that I was doing a lot around some abusers, was to bring them to the bottom of the ocean, which kind of separates us from everything, you know, and then see them as a small child. Yeah. And that kind of softens you enough to go like, this small child would not want to hurt me intentionally, you know, and that just... It gives you the ability to have compassion, and compassion is the key to all of this.
Yeah, especially if it's somebody within your circle or somebody that you trust.
Or even road rage guy. Like, I was able to do that with him. You know, I told you earlier, I like literally saw a little kid throwing a tantrum in his car. I couldn't really communicate with him, so I chose to just like kind of back up and like smile and let him go. But that was a communication in itself, right? Yeah. Versus me flipping him off or whatever.
I do like flipping people up.
I would never do that.
There is a justification. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but it's just like This guy's an asshole. And then you flip him.
No way, not me.
Just for fun.
Oh, that's you. I don't know. I could just never do it.
I'm a guy at the end
I
of
know.
the day.
I'm just like you. I'm a big soft heart.
So what did we learn, Miss Mary? What is a learning lesson for the day?
We have a lot of addendums. No, take the time to pause between the stimulus and the response. So when something triggers you, take a moment to really get curious about before you react in any situation, right? That's a takeaway.
Yeah.
The other takeaway is that, in order to have compassion, what really would be helpful is to see the other person as a child that's just trying to work through things just as you are.
Yeah.
And then, you throw me a couple here.
Except that we're irrational.
Accept that and accept your emotions. Stop trying to repress them. We are humans. We have them. They are okay. Find healthy ways to let them out, healthy outlets for them. Because the more you repress it, the more it's going to show up, the more it's going to run your life.
Absolutely. So until next week.
Until next week.
We'll bring Mary back for another episode of The Inner Journey. Like, subscribe, comment, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. See you guys.